Welcome, and thank you for joining us on the Saintly Grind. We are three women walking in different paths in our lives and in our Catholic faith. We are journeying together and helping each other get closer to Christ in our relationship with Him and closer to heaven. Disclaimer: our discussions are based on our own opinions. We are not perfect and we don't know it all, so we welcome you to join us in sharing your own thoughts and opinions by dropping a comment below or sending us a message. Now, grab a cup of coffee or tea or water and join us in today's discussion. Hello, welcome.
Hi, welcome back.
You're sitting on the parent chair, so I remember you're the host.
Oh,
She's the boss.
whatever. I'm the B positive. Cheers.
Oh, she's the queen bee.
Yes. We
whatever.
all have little bees. Look at that. Be yourself.
Your bee's knees.
Okay.
Oh,
Settle down
I love
now.
it. Mine has a bee inside my cup. So every time I drink, I'm like,
I know. Try not to look at the bee.
Oh my gosh.
This weekend, there was a bee that was haunting me. I kid you not. Like it was so close to stinging me, right? I was literally screaming my head off as I was like quietly walking away. Well,
They smell fear.
dude, she smelled me because she was all over me, and I was just like,
They
this is so
fear.
terrifying. Like I don't know if I'm allergic, so I was terrified.
it was the queen bee coming after you.
Telling you to be positive.
Be positive.
She was trying to put some positivity in me.
Sure was.
She wasn't going to go after your knees.
Ew. Oh my gosh.
That's funny.
Sorry,
Moment
guys. This is real life right here.
That's right. That's
Yes.
what we do. So today we're going to have a conversation about conversations and how, yeah, I know, and how attentive we are when we listen, our listening skills, if you will, and how attentive we are when people are speaking to us. Are we present or are we distracted? And for me, when we were discussing the topic, I thought about also in our prayer. I think we talked about that before, but how attentive are we and how present are we when we're praying with Jesus? And the reason I thought about that is because this morning during my prayer with the rosary, I was so distracted, and I apologize to my Blessed Mother because I was thinking that wasn't, one, it wasn't very effective, and two, like that was rude, like, oh my goodness, to be distracted. So maybe I'll say another rosary today.
Yeah, but no distractions.
Without distractions, yeah, or commercial breaks.
But like we've said before in the past, like she knows, our heavenly parents know our intentions.
Right?
So, like, because there has been times where I have tried to do the rosary before bed, and like halfway through I'm like already dozing off and I just fall asleep, like unintentionally. But, it's like the intention is there.
Yeah,
So
I
that's
think
what
so
counts.
too.
Yeah.
I think so too, but I don't think we should intentionally be distracted either.
Oh,
like,
yeah, no,
not,
definitely not.
yeah, I was intentionally distracted,
No.
so I need to work on that. This is my confession. Forgive me
Wow.
for I've sinned.
No confessions, please.
Not yet. So we're going to focus on Saint Elizabeth and how attentive, right, she was when Mary took time to visit her to tell her that she was expecting baby Jesus. What was Elizabeth thinking? Was she present? Was she distracted? Where was she at in that process? And just a little history summed up. Remember, Saint Elizabeth is Mary's cousin who was expecting John the Baptist. And so she was an elderly lady who was hoping to have a child and was gifted John the Baptist, but wasn't really attentive to the news of Mary because, remember, Mary wasn't married. And, her and Joseph having this child was, the talk of the town, if you will. So, I try to have an imagery of the conversation of the two of them, walking into the house? Did they make coffee and, you know, have a seat and let's talk
Yes.
about our pregnancies? Or was it like, oh, you're here and, you know, I'm pregnant, why do I have to hear about you? You know what I mean, kind of thing. So, yeah, let's have that conversation.
Well, I think right now, listening to you and what you're saying, I think she was joyful because we do get from her the Hail Mary, you know, and she does greet her like, I don't know the exact words. I have to
Hail
look it up,
Mary,
but-
full of grace.
Yeah, full of grace, you know, and so I think it was joyful, and I would, if I was Elizabeth, like, come on, let's make some coffee, because I'm a coffee addict, but, you know, like, let's sit down and let's talk, and I think that's, as women, that's what we do,
Right.
you know, like, hey, come over for a cup of coffee. I know with my girlfriends, that's how it is, you know, it's like, hey, let's get together, we'll go to a coffee shop and just talk and gossip and, you know, what's happening, and
Good gossip. Good
yes,
gossip.
good gossip. Like, you know, what's been going on in our lives and, you know, all the
Yeah.
projects we have.
Catching
and-
up.
Yeah. Catching up, it sounds better than gossip.
Choose your words.
Choose your words.
Let's go get a cup of coffee and catch up.
Yes. But so that's what I envision. I envision her being joyful and, you know, sharing her experience too.
Yeah,
No.
right? Because it was like a good thing. But again, just putting yourself in that imagery of that experience too, you know, what was it like? And you're right, you know, this is where we get the Hail Mary from, because that's how Elizabeth greeted her. You know, with that excitement, Hail Mary, and meaning hail to Mary because she is the chosen one. You know, she was the chosen one to bring us Jesus. So, and full of grace because she did nothing wrong. You know, she was chosen and blessed in her purity. So, how smart Elizabeth was as well during that time. So, let's move on. Let's think about this. I was also sharing that through this little document that we have in this understanding of being present and listening, but also now with, you know, modern technology, with texting and emailing, you know, what if Mary texted Elizabeth and said, I'm going to come over because I have some news to share with you? Like, what was Elizabeth's take from that? You know, how do we read into a text message like that? Are we like, ugh, you know, or is it, oh, cool, she's going to come over, let's talk, you know, let me get the coffee ready kind of thing. Without burden, you know, but with more excitement. But how many times as humans here on earth have we encountered that with these devices, you know, the text message, and you know, what are we reading too much into it from time to time? Do we not read enough into it? Do we respond in a timely manner? Are we cordial in our responses? You know, do we let the acronyms take over, or, you know, do we, I don't know, what are our behaviors in this process of communication? Because sometimes they're offensive. We don't mean to be offensive, but it's how we read what was said. And Father always says, what you hear may not be what I said, and what I said may not be what you're hearing, you know. So kind of that reciprocal conversation of going back and forth. And how many times does that happen in our daily life?
Yeah, I'm like super paranoid about that stuff. That's why sometimes it takes me like hours to respond to an email, or I'll be like, can you check this before I send this? Because I am very cautious about that, because I personally take offense sometimes, and it totally was not meant like that. And I'm like, well, why did you put this? And it's like, oh, but I didn't say it in a bad way, but I read it that way. And so I think texting, for me at least, it's very impersonal. Even if it is sending it to somebody, you know, your loved ones, your sister, your mom or something, I think it's very impersonal because people can misread it. And there's not that personal connection where you could see their face expressions, if they roll their eyes, or if they took a deep breath, as you said, you know, like, I'm gonna come over. yeah, so I think texting does disconnect you a lot from your human relationships.
Are you a better? Do you prefer text messages over phone calls?
I do. Simple as that.
Yeah.
I am a texter. I will ignore calls sometimes. Like I see it, I'm like, they could text. And then I say it, and everybody tags me on memes and sends me, and they're like, "This is so you." It is. Like you already know, you know. Even my cousin, she's in Japan right now because she was sent over there from the Navy. And even before she FaceTimes me, she's like, "Do you have time? Are you okay? Can I call you?" I'm like, "Yeah, you're fine." But it gives me like a heads up, you know. And sometimes she has called, and it's like at a time where I can't answer, and I just tell her like, are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine. I just want to talk to you. Oh, okay. Well, I'll call you later. But it's always through text. That's how I've always done it. You know, like I don't know. And to me, I think it's better because then I can look back at text messages. Like I still look back at the text messages I would send my dad because he was so against me just not wanting to, you know, call.
Wow.
And because most of the time I was at school anyway, so it was always through text. And I'm like, well, see, now I have them to like look back at. And I think it's harder for like not older, but like
Easy.
my family members. They're all talkers, and I'm not. Like I just don't want to. You know?
I hear you.
Yeah.
And even if I want to, sometimes just the time, like just send it to me. I'll respond as soon as I can. And sometimes I respond in my head and I forget.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. I respond the next day. I read your message and I thought I responded. But and then you know, like that's how I communicate. But that's always been my form of communication. Well, not always. Ever since we got a phone.
Yeah.
Because my first phone was a prepaid phone, flip phone that I could not text.
So everybody was like, woo, get our flip phone.
I know. My dad's like, I'm taking back your smartphone. You're getting
Flip phone.
That's funny.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
See, and for me, I feel like it depends. It does depend for me, like, because sometimes, like, my mom will call me with, like, a list of things, and I'm like, that could have been a text, because I'm not going to remember. And sure enough, like, I come home, and I'm like, oh, I forgot the milk, you know? And it's like, things like that. But when it's, like, a serious conversation, sometimes my best friend will text me, and she'll say, I need to see you, like, you know, I just need girl time. I'm like, okay, and we'll just schedule it, and we won't talk about anything. But in the meantime, I'm like, well, what could have happened? Is she okay? Did this happen? Did that? But having that face-to-face, you know, communication, I think to me, I prefer that.
Well, I mean, if somebody has to talk, I don't, like, yeah, we can, maybe not today, but you know,
Oh yeah.
we can see each other and meet up, but I don't know, like even, and I'm so guilty of this, and my mom knows too that when I'm driving, I want to listen to music, and sometimes when she's in the car with me, she's on the phone with her sister, and I'll just like casually put up my music, like the volume, and then she's like, I can't hear it. I'm like, well, I can't hear my music, and you already know I only drive with music. And then sometimes she'll be like, I'll just call you when I get home because I cannot talk when she's on the car. She does not like talking. I'm sorry, like it's just how it is.
Sorry, not sorry.
Sorry, not sorry. It's my drive. Like I want to listen to music. Same if we go out to eat. You know, like it's. I'm there. I want to be present, so I'm not gonna answer or do anything.
That's a good point too. I think for me too, sometimes in the responses, like I don't know if you've ever experienced this or not, but when you respond to a text message, do you ever wish that you could delete it and do it over? Because that's part of that listening concept, do you?
Well, I'll just add to it. I'll send like 5 different texts, like adding to it, you know?
I think there's times where that has happened to me where I'm like, shoot, did I send the right thing? And then I read what they sent me and I'm like, oh, I could have totally said something different. But because you're just on the go.
Exactly.
And so you just like text the first thing that comes to your mind and you're like, shoot, what did I do?
Well, and that's kind of, going back to the experience of Mary and Elizabeth again. You know, I don't think that Elizabeth ever regretted any part of their conversation because I feel like she was the best example possible about being present. And so if Elizabeth and Mary were texting, like I feel she would have taken a few minutes to respond because she would have looked at the words and really let them sink in before responding. And so and again, I know that there are text messages where that requires a immediate response, but there are some text messages or emails or communications where, you have to take a step back and reflect before we respond. And even in our conversations or in-person conversations, and I always say this, if we could go back to that bracelet, WWJD, what would Jesus do? Because I think about that too, like what type of response would he have for people? Sometimes we don't have to have any words in our response because this says it all. At least for me, I'm that, I fortunately or unfortunately have that gift. At least now it's just this part, for most people they just see my eyes, but even my eyes speak volumes. And so I feel like Jesus only has a face of love and compassion, and so we would always experience love and compassion when we're speaking to him or with him. And I feel, Mary and Elizabeth had that same thing, but we as humans on earth living today could be better, because sometimes we're unintentional in our responses, and unintentional responses bring hurt sometimes or adversity. And so maybe that's a good point for us to reflect on, before we shoot off a text message, because that's pretty much the primary mode of communication, that we reflect just like we do when we're in person, so that we can choose our words, and let them be words that Jesus would want, and today's the Sorrowful Mystery, I think, the mysteries of the Rosary, the Sorrowful Mysteries. And so the fruit of the crucifixion is the mystery of the crucifixion. If you had to define it by one word, it would be salvation, right? Because we know that Jesus died for our salvation. And so in doing that, if we had to be responsible for every word we said, and that was dependent on our salvation.
Oh my gosh.
Exactly. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? Oh, I would never climb the ladder to heaven. I would be that one going up and then 10 steps down, 1 step up, 15 steps backwards,
We'll just be going on those escalators like in the mall, just going down. Trying to climb up the whole time.
Then it breaks.
Right?
That would be my luck.
Yeah. But it's our advice, because sometimes, I don't know if you've ever experienced this either, but when you're having a conversation with someone, be it in person or electronically, and that person is already responding before you're finished talking.
Oh my gosh. That's when I'm like, I should have called. Too late.
Yeah. Have you ever had that happen?
I've had situations happen where, like somebody's trying to unload their burden. And I've been wanting to say something, but there's no comma in the conversation, and I'm just like, okay, try to remember this. And so it's really hard for me to focus after like 10 minutes of hearing this person talk, and I'm like, I forgot. So I feel like I need to have notes. And I'm like, wait, did she say her cousin's cousin twice removed? It's just situations like that where I can't listen for that long and be an active listener per se, because I think that's one of my qualities that suck I don't even think it's a quality. I think it's a defect, really, because I'm constantly trying to think of like, what am I gonna say back? Like I can't.
Yeah.
And ever since we took that the bereavement ministry classes and all of that, I try to be mindful more of the conversations that I'm having, and I'm trying to be more of an active listener. But my mind, it just doesn't stop, and I'm like, how can I respond to this? How can I respond? And it bothers me about me, because then I know I'm not listening.
And then you don't know how to respond because you didn't listen.
This happens.
Right.
And it bothers me so much, and so I'm trying really hard to turn that off. And in present conversations, I'm also trying to be more mindful of my body. Because I'm trying to put my 2 feet straight to the person that I'm talking to. And sometimes when the conversation runs too long and there is something that I need to attend to, or somebody's calling me, like I'll start turning. And that person will stop talking. I'm like, dude, this is your cue. Like, how do I stop? Like, because I want to be respectful, but I don't want to be like, oh, I gotta go. You know, so I'm like, just quietly, just like turning.
Yeah. But I think that's important because we do, I mean, obviously boundaries are important for everything and knowing when to say when. And sometimes the unloader is just so free of unloading and not knowing when to pause or, you know, that semicolon. But I feel like we as people trying to make our way to heaven are people with hope, right? We're hopeful people. And so just because we recognize these qualities or defaults, how are we going to build upon them, you know? And that's important too, because that's reflective communication. You know, we know that this is probably not the best way, but we know what we could do to make it better. I have so many people who call me and text me and what I'm learning to do is legit shut off, you know, like just
there's boundaries.
Yeah. And so I'm you know, really giving myself, you know, social media and phone time out. And whether it's just me sitting in front of the TV doing absolutely nothing for my mental health, I just...
That sounds so bad. Wow, I do that a lot then.
But you know what I mean? Like just watching something that is not of any benefit. But you feel like a sense of reprieve, you know? It's just like, I can take breath in. Yeah.
That's what happened when I started like a new series and I'm just like hooked on it. I'm like, oh, I forgot I have to work tomorrow.
Yeah. The Office. When she's rewatching The Office.
Big Theory, Friends.
Yeah. I just, you know, it's a good time though to take a break for yourself too.
Yeah.
Because as we were talking earlier when we were discussing the confessions, we can't be people of judgment, right? We have to be people of example and people of hope, but most especially people of compassion and joy. And I think if we can remember that, you know, those are the qualities of Jesus. And what would Jesus do? You know, how would Jesus do this? I feel it's important, you know, to be able to embrace that. As a mom of adult children, though, there's always that, I can't shut my phone off because what if, you know, the what if. I think that is true for any mom, but, you know, we always think about the what ifs, and especially right now, you know, just all the stuff going on in the world. But on the other side of it, if we lift up our loved ones, Jesus is going to take care of them in his way, you know, whatever that means, or I don't know, but I have to be able to trust that he has their back more than I do. So, yeah, that's the thought that I had coming out of all of this. You know, before we offer advice, that we take a few minutes to listen attentively, you know, before we respond, that we listen attentively.
And I think when we, like you're saying, you know, when we take time for ourselves, for our mental health, then we are open to, you know, listening more attentively, and not, because then you're not thinking of the next task, you know, because you're more at peace. if you just had your own little spa day at home, or you know,
Right.
something really tiny, but if
Mhm.
you take care of your mental health, then you know it just opens your mind to see where God takes you, and putting Him in every situation.
Right?
Yeah.
Mm.
Very true.
Even if even if we get sidetracked and forget to make Him the first part of that situation, if we're open to His presence in the discernment or in the reflective part of the situation. And I am working on trying to be someone that reflects the love of God in all that we do and say, or all that I do and say, because it's so important. You know, we are in our positions of ministry that that should be a prerequisite, you know, for ourselves and for each other, and for the people that we serve, you know, the community, and most especially for Jesus. You know, at the end of the day, when I clock out, and I think about my day, am I always putting Him first in conversations, in communications, or am I trying to take over that? So
What's like Father John's homily, you know, he puts people in your path for a reason.
Amen.
And so, you know, what is the reason that God is putting this person, even if it's a difficult situation that we have to, you know, face, but why? What is God trying to help me to develop to be holier, I guess, you know, like the fruits that we have, and patience is mine. I know He's always trying to get me to develop that fruit, and I'm like, it ain't happening today, Jesus. I'll try again tomorrow.
And even the cross, like Father said in his homily, and if you haven't heard Father's homily from this past Sunday, I encourage you to go to the YouTube channel or the Facebook page and listen to Mass with Father John at the 10 or the 12 o'clock. But I don't know if you've tried that yet, or if you've had the need to. Draw your cross and write down the positives and the negatives, or the pros and the cons of an experience. I actually did it yesterday, and it was a trip. It was, I learned something. It totally was. Totally. And it made me come to a decision that I felt at peace with. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but I'm like, I'm going to start doing that. Okay. Carry around my pencil, paper, and cross.
Gonna carry your cross.
Yes, literally. Amen.
Oh, I dropped the spirit.
So how about some homework before we get cut off? Why don't you take time to reflect on your ability to have intentional conversations, be it in person, via social media, or electronically. But see where you're at, you know, evaluate your own self in how you are listening, like Elizabeth listened to Mary, and how you respond the way that Elizabeth responded to Mary, you know? And is there a prayer coming out of your life? Imagine. What?
All right.
All right.
Well, thank you for joining us. Thank you for being with us another day.
Yes, another week.
I know.
All right, y'all. We'll see you soon. God bless you. Bye.